Hey Mom, thanks for hanging out with me today and letting me ask you a few questions about perfectionism and vulnerability. As you know, I have been going on this emotional development journey, and I have been trying to overcome the effects of perfectionism by being more vulnerable. And I just wanted to kind of ask you some questions around that because I feel like we're very similar in a lot of ways, and I value what you have to say. So I just kind of wanted to ask you a few questions on what your thoughts are, kind of on what I've been going through on my journey.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have any pressure to be perfect, whether it's in a job setting or as a mom?
And as far as being perfect to you and your sister, I would feel that I was doing you guys a disservice if I was doing that, because I want you guys to learn from my mistakes. So I feel that being vulnerable with you and your sister is actually, I think it's better for you guys to see that, hey, my mom isn't perfect. She's done this or that in her life, and she's told me what the outcomes are, and I've learned from them, so I'm not going to go and do it myself.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But as far as being perfect around coworkers or friends, I don't feel appearance-wise I try to be perfect. But as far as my performance at work, I do, but that's not to please other people. It's just because I take pride in my work.
With you saying that you are vulnerable with Chaslin and I, that has really helped because that has modeled what being vulnerable looks like, and is why I feel so comfortable coming to you and asking you for advice on something, or comfortable coming to you and showing you my flaws and being vulnerable and all of that, because I feel like you've modeled that really well. But there is an element of shame, and almost like I feel weak for having flaws, and then weak again for talking about it, because I feel like it's not normal to talk about our weaknesses. It's not normal to talk about our flaws. And so I feel like when people do and kind of talk about, well, I'm actually not great at this kind of thing, or I actually screwed up and I did this, I feel like there's judgment that comes along with that from other people who maybe don't reciprocate that vulnerability, and then it definitely brings an element of shame or regret of, I wish I wouldn't have shared that, and then I'm probably going to think twice again about sharing that. Is there ever a time where you have been vulnerable with someone, whether it's like in our family or friends or whatever, where it kind of backfired and you left feeling ashamed?
I would say that being vulnerable with allowing myself to care or love somebody, and then they go and they break that trust, that's backfired on me. Yeah. I would say that it's not something that that I've learned. I think it's just living life and experiencing different relationships. When I ask myself is, why do I need to be perfect for other people? I mean, does that person, do they love me? Are they providing a roof over my head? Are they putting food in my stomach? You know, what am I getting out of it, out of my relationship for that person to perform to level of trying to be perfect for them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think creates that environment where people feel safe to be vulnerable, or creates that relationship that brings safety to be vulnerable like that? Like, what are some relationships that you have, like our relationship, where you feel safe to be vulnerable? What kind of allows you to get to that spot where you feel okay, like it's a judgment-free zone, basically, to talk about your flaws with somebody else?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that that person, through experience, has proven that they love you unconditionally. Just taking a risk at being vulnerable with that person and allowing that person to see your flaws. Like I said earlier, with you and your sister, it's not a choice. It's innately in me because I'm a mother. But then if it's something, a relationship with somebody that I haven't had for that long, then it's kind of more of testing and experience, testing to see. I'll show this person just a little bit of my flaws and see how they react.
Yeah.
And then kind of go from there as far as if you're going to allow the relationship to develop, or if you know that, hey, this person isn't, for me, and either I have to kind of keep it shallow or part ways.
I found that a lot of other people are finding freedom in me finding freedom that I've talked to, who are like, yeah, actually, you're right. Like, I struggle with that too. I'm not perfect as well. Here are some of my flaws, and we've really bonded over that. But I definitely still struggle with it. I think that vulnerability is a piece that helps to overcome that. But what would you say to me or someone like me who is also struggling with those pressures of being a perfectionist and just kind of struggling with how to overcome that? What advice would you give?
Well, first I'd want to know why you feel pressure to be a certain way or to perform a certain way.
I just have felt like anything less than perfection is unacceptable. Like, I remember one time growing up, I came home from school with, I think it was like a test or some school assignment that I had done, and I was excited to show my dad, and he, and I had gotten like a B minus or a B plus or something like that on it, but I thought I did well, and he said, O'Bannons get A's, and I think ever since then, that kind of put it into perspective of his expectations of me and my behavior, especially academically. And as far as I can remember, I have put pressure on myself to get an A in every class. And so I think that perfection definitely stems from the level of expectation that I put on myself after that, because I felt like that was the expectation that he put on me. And it was almost like I had to earn his approval through perfection. And so I feel like that's trickled down into other relationships and even friendships. We're learning about how really kind of the meaning of life is the quality of your relationships, and that's really what matters at the end of life. But having relationships is really hard for me because that allows somebody into your life, and like you were talking about, kind of the level of relationship that you can have with someone else, kind of like the level of vulnerability kind of dictates how shallow or not shallow that relationship is. Mm-hmm. So if I feel like I can't be vulnerable and show my flaws with someone, then I just have a bunch of shallow relationships. And through going through this class and reading this book, I really feel like challenged to kind of take that risk again and open myself up to be more vulnerable and show my flaws regardless of people's reactions, and that their reactions are more of a them thing than a me.